Before you spend that old penny, look closely. One tiny detail could turn a single cent into a shocking fortune. The 1941 Lincoln wheat penny is the kind of coin that can look completely ordinary until you start inspecting the details. At first glance, it is simply an old 1-cent piece from the early 1940s. But look underneath the date, and you'll notice one small letter that changes the identity of the coin immediately. The D. That tiny mint mark tells you this penny was produced at the Denver Mint, and for collectors, that detail is where the investigation begins. The 1941 Lincoln cent was struck during an important period in American history, just as the United States was entering the years that would be dominated by World War II. The classic Lincoln wheat design was still being used, with Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the two wheat ears on the reverse. Lincoln faces right, with liberty beside him, and I in God we trust above. On the back, 1 cent sits between the wheat stalks, with United States of America surrounding the design. According to PCGS, the 1941 D had a mintage of 128.7 million pieces. It was made from a bronze alloy containing 95% copper, with a standard weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters. That means millions were produced, so the date and mint mark alone do not make every 1941 D penny rare. The real question is whether your particular coin has something unusual that separates it from the ordinary examples. Start your inspection with the D mint mark. Look closely at the area beneath the date. The D should have a normal, recognizable shape and should appear naturally integrated into the coin's surface. Don't confuse damage, scratches, or attempts to alter the mint mark with a genuine minting variety. If you see something unusual around the D, compare it with clear photographs of known examples before drawing any conclusions. Now move to the date. Examine the 1, 9, 4, and 1 under magnification. You're looking for unusual doubling, distorted edges, die cracks, or other characteristics that could have originated during the minting process. Genuine doubled details generally appear as part of the design itself. A scratch crossing a number or a flat-looking secondary edge isn't automatically a doubled die. Here's something many collectors overlook. Inspect Lincoln's portrait before turning the coin over. Look around the hair, beard, bow tie, and coat. Examine the fields surrounding Lincoln for raised lines or unusual die characteristics. If you see a crack running through part of the design, follow it carefully. Die cracks can sometimes provide useful evidence because they originate from deterioration of the die used to strike the coin. Now flip the penny over. The wheat reverse deserves just as much attention. Slowly follow both wheat stalks from the bottom upward. Examine 1 cent and United States of America letter by letter. Look for doubled elements, unusual raised metal, missing design details, or an abnormal strike. Then look at the rim. This is where a dramatic mint error can become much easier to recognize. An off-center strike may leave a portion of the planchet without design while pushing the coin's artwork noticeably toward one side. A broad strike can affect the normal shape of the rim. A clipped planchet can leave a curved or missing section along the edge. These are very different from scratches or dents caused after the coin left the mint. If something looks strange, compare it with another 1941 D penny. Put both coins under the same light and examine them side by side. Compare the date, mint mark, rim, lettering, color, strike, and overall shape. This simple comparison can prevent you from mistaking normal characteristics for errors. And don't forget the weight. A normal 1941 D Lincoln cent should be around 3.11 grams. If your scale shows a noticeably different result, investigate further. But weight alone doesn't prove an error. Wear, corrosion, damage, or an inaccurate scale can all affect the measurement. Use a precise digital scale and compare your result against trusted specifications. Condition can make a dramatic difference as well. Many 1941 D pennies were circulated for decades, leaving them with worn details, scratches, darkened surfaces, and reduced luster. A coin that survived with exceptional original surfaces can be far more desirable. Collectors also pay attention to color. A bronze Lincoln cent can be classified as brown, red-brown, or red depending on how much original red coloration remains. A high-grade red example with strong luster and minimal marks can command considerably more than a heavily circulated brown example. Professional grading becomes particularly important when a coin appears exceptional. Grading services evaluate wear, strike quality, surface preservation, color, luster, and eye appeal, while certification gives buyers and collectors greater confidence that the coin has been accurately evaluated. And real auction results show the difference between an ordinary coin and an exceptional certified example. PCGS records an auction result of $9,000 for a 1941D Lincoln Cent graded MS68RD, sold by Heritage Auctions on January 19, 2025. That's a normal regular strike coin, not evidence that every 1941D penny is worth thousands. In fact, many circulated 1941D cents are worth only a modest collector premium. The value rises as condition improves, and exceptional certified examples can reach much higher levels. But when a genuine mint error enters the picture, the situation can change dramatically because collectors may be competing for an unusual coin that is far scarcer than the standard issue. And this is where the high-end figure connected with this 1941D becomes especially interesting. A value of $166,000 plus should not be interpreted as the ordinary market price of a 1941D Lincoln wheat penny. That kind of number belongs to an extraordinary scenario involving a highly unusual and verified mint error, exceptionally rare variety, or another characteristic capable of creating intense collector demand. The confirmed auction record for a normal 1941D is dramatically lower, which makes it even more important to distinguish an ordinary coin from a genuinely exceptional one. So if you're holding a 1941D right now, don't simply look at the year and decide whether it's valuable. Inspect the D. Inspect the date. Inspect Lincoln's portrait. Turn the coin over and study the wheat ears and lettering. Check the rim. Weigh it. And then compare everything against a normal example. If you discover a feature that still looks unusual after careful examination, don't clean the coin or polish the surface. Preserve it exactly as you found it. Take clear photographs, document the unusual feature, and consider professional authentication if the evidence appears significant. The complete high-end value associated with this particular example is $166,000 plus, but only an extraordinary, verified specimen could justify a figure anywhere near that level. That's the real lesson of the 1941D wheat penny. The D mint mark gets your attention, but the details determine whether you've found an ordinary old cent or something that deserves a much closer look. The 1936 Lincoln wheat penny may look like an ordinary old 1-cent coin, but before you dismiss it, take a much closer look. This Philadelphia minted penny comes from an era when Lincoln cents were made from bronze, and tiny differences in the strike, surfaces, and design can separate a normal collectible from something far more interesting. If you have a 1936 penny without a mint mark, don't put it away just yet. There are several details worth examining before you decide what you have. The 1936 Lincoln cent is part of the famous wheat penny series, which began in 1909 and continued until 1958. On the front, you'll see Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, with liberty to the left and I in God we trust above. The reverse features two wheat ears surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America. That simple design has become one of the most recognizable images in American coin collecting. Now focus on the area beneath the date. Your 1936 example has no mint mark, and that is exactly what you would expect from a Philadelphia issue. During this period, Philadelphia cents normally carried no mint letter, while coins struck at Denver or San Francisco were identified with D or S. So the absence of a mint mark doesn't automatically indicate an error. In fact, understanding what should be there is one of the most important parts of identifying a genuine mint error. Here's where your inspection begins. Hold the coin under a bright light and slowly rotate it. Start with the date. Look closely at the numbers and check whether any part of the design appears duplicated. Genuine double die characteristics can show a secondary image that is actually part of the die itself. This is very different from a scratch, dent, or ordinary machine doubling. If the doubling looks inconsistent or appears as flat, shelf-like metal, don't immediately assume you've discovered a rare variety. Next, move your attention to Liberty and the lettering around the coin. Look at the edges of the letters rather than simply looking for something that appears blurry. Then inspect Lincoln's portrait. Pay particular attention to the hair, beard, bow tie, coat, and the surrounding field. A strong strike should produce clear design details, while unusual raised lines, die cracks, or distorted areas can sometimes provide clues that something happened during the minting process. Now turn the coin over. The wheat ears deserve a slow examination. Follow each stalk from the bottom toward the tips. Then inspect 1 cent and United States of America. Look for raised cracks, unusual doubling, missing portions of design, or an abnormal strike. If the coin appears dramatically off-center, examine the rim as well. A genuine off-center strike will usually show a very different relationship between the design and the edge of the planchet than a coin that was simply damaged after leaving the mint. And here's something many people overlook: the edge itself. Rotate the penny slowly and look for anything unusual around the rim. A broad strike, clipped planchet, or other mint-made error can leave physical evidence that becomes much easier to notice from the edge. Post-mint damage can also affect the rim, so comparison is important. If possible, compare your coin with another normal 1936 Philadelphia cent. Weight gives you another useful clue. A regular 1936 Lincoln cent weighs about 3.11 grams and measures approximately 19 millimeters in diameter. PCGS identifies the regular 1936 Philadelphia cent as a 95% copper coin with a mintage of 309,632,000 pieces. If your coin's weight is significantly different, don't immediately assume it's valuable. First, verify the accuracy of your scale, then investigate whether the difference could be explained by wear, damage, or a genuine planchet problem. Condition is where another major difference appears. A heavily circulated 1936 penny may have worn lettering, scratches, dark surfaces, and reduced detail. A high-grade example can look dramatically different, especially when it retains original red color and strong mint luster. Professional grading considers factors such as surface preservation, strike quality, color designation, luster, contact marks, and overall eye appeal. And we have real auction evidence showing just how far an exceptional normal 1936 cent can go. PCGS records an auction result of $19,200 for a regular strike 1936 Lincoln cent, graded MS68RD, sold by Heritage Auctions in January 2025. That's an important reality check. A normal 1936 penny is not automatically worth thousands of dollars. Exceptional grade and preservation are what pushed that certified example into a much higher collector category. There's also an interesting twist for collectors looking specifically at varieties. PCGS records a 1936 double die obverse, Type 1, graded MS67RD, selling for $48,000 in the same January 2025 Heritage Auctions event. That demonstrates why examining the date and lettering matters. But remember, that auction result belongs to a specifically identified double die variety, not to every 1936 penny. So if your 1936 cent looks unusual, don't clean it, polish it, or scrape the surface to make the details easier to see. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surfaces and reduce collector value. Instead, photograph the coin, weigh it accurately, compare it with known examples, and if the feature appears genuine and significant, consider professional authentication and grading. Now comes the number that makes this particular 1936 penny especially intriguing. A high-end value of $212,000 plus can be associated with extraordinary claims or exceptional error scenarios, but that is absolutely not the normal value of a 1936 Philadelphia wheat penny. A regular example can be worth a modest amount depending on condition, while elite certified coins can reach thousands. A verified major mint error or exceptionally rare variety could potentially create a completely different level of collector demand. That's why the goal isn't simply to find a 1936 penny. The goal is to find the 1936 penny that doesn't behave like an ordinary one. Look at the date again. Check Liberty. Study Lincoln's portrait. Turn it over and inspect the wheat ears and lettering. Examine the rim. Weigh the coin. Compare every unusual feature against a normal example. If something still doesn't make sense after all those checks, that's when your old 1-cent coin becomes genuinely interesting. Because in numismatics, the date gets your attention, but the tiny details are what can change the entire story. The 1939 Lincoln wheat penny may look like nothing more than an old 1-cent coin, but this is exactly the kind of coin that rewards patience. At first glance, you see Abraham Lincoln, the familiar wheat reverse, and a date that places the coin in the final years before World War II transformed American industry. But look closer, because the real story isn't simply that this penny is old. It's what you might discover when you inspect the tiny details that most people never notice. The 1939 Lincoln cent was part of the wheat penny series that began in 1909, and it carries Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Lincoln faces right, with liberty beside him, and I in God we trust above. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the two wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America. This classic reverse design remained on the Lincoln cent until 1958, making the 1939 issue part of one of the most collected series in American numismatics. Now look underneath the date. Your example has no mint mark. That detail is important, but it isn't automatically an error. A 1939 Lincoln cent without a mint mark indicates the Philadelphia Mint, where cents were routinely struck without a mint letter. Coins produced at Denver or San Francisco were identified differently. So if you don't see a letter below the date, don't assume something is missing. In this case, the absence itself is normal. What you want to determine is whether anything else about the coin is unusual. Start with the date. Use a magnifying glass and inspect each digit carefully. Look at the edges of the numbers rather than simply asking whether they appear blurry. Genuine doubled die characteristics can show a distinct secondary impression integrated into the design. By contrast, scratches, flattened areas, and machine doubling can create shapes that look exciting but don't represent a valuable doubled die. Now move to Liberty. Check the lettering one character at a time. Then inspect Lincoln's portrait. Look closely at the hair, beard, bow tie, and the surrounding field. You're searching for unusual raised lines, die cracks, distortion, or other characteristics that could have originated during the striking process. Here's something many people overlook: the surface itself. A genuine mint error is created at the mint, but a coin can suffer damage for decades afterward. A scratch across Lincoln's cheek is damage. A gouge near the date is damage. A flattened rim caused by dropping the coin is damage. These may make the coin look unusual, but they generally don't create the same collector interest as a documented mint-made error. Now turn the penny over. The wheat reverse deserves the same level of attention. Follow both wheat stalks and examine the lettering around 1 cent. Look carefully at United States of America and the spaces between the letters. Check for doubled design elements, raised die cracks, unusual metal formations, or areas where the strike appears inconsistent. Then inspect the rim. This is one of the fastest ways to notice certain dramatic errors. An off-center strike can leave the design noticeably displaced toward one side. A broad strike can alter the normal shape of the coin's edge. A clipped planchet can produce a missing section along the perimeter. These are not simply weird-looking coins. Genuine examples can provide physical evidence of something unusual happening during production. But before getting excited, compare your 1939 cent with another normal example. Place the coins side by side under the same light. Compare the date, lettering, portrait, rim, color, and overall shape. This simple comparison can reveal whether you're seeing a true anomaly or simply normal variation and circulation damage. Weight is another useful test. A standard 1939 Lincoln cent was made from bronze and normally weighs about 3.11 grams. If your coin is significantly different, investigate further. But remember that weight alone does not prove an error. Wear, corrosion, damage, or an inaccurate scale can all affect your reading. Use a reliable digital scale and compare your result with trusted specifications. Condition can dramatically change the value of an otherwise ordinary 1939 cent. A heavily circulated brown coin with scratches and weak details may have only modest collector value. An exceptionally preserved coin with strong strike characteristics, original surfaces, and desirable red coloration can be worth considerably more. Professional grading becomes especially important at the high end. Services such as PCGS and NGC examine factors including wear, luster, surface preservation, strike quality, color, and eye appeal. A certified grade gives collectors a standardized way to compare exceptional examples. and real auction results show just how much condition can matter. PCGS records a 1939 Lincoln Cent graded MS 68 plus RD selling for $36,000 at Heritage Auctions in January 2025. That was a normal Philadelphia issue rather than a dramatic error coin, demonstrating that extraordinary preservation alone can create substantial collector demand. So what about the much larger number associated with this particular 1939 penny? Around the middle of the investigation, this is where the story becomes much more interesting. A figure beginning around $192,000 represents an extraordinary high-end value target, not the normal market price of an ordinary 1939 Philadelphia wheat penny. A regular circulated example is generally worth far less, while high-grade certified examples can reach substantially higher prices. A value in the six-figure range would require an exceptionally rare circumstance, such as a major verified mint error, an extraordinary variety, or another characteristic that makes the coin genuinely scarce and highly desirable. That distinction is critical. You don't want to look at a normal 1939 penny and assume you found a $192,000 coin. Instead, ask whether your coin has something that separates it from thousands of ordinary examples. Look again at the date. Is there genuine doubling? Check the rim. Is the planchet shape normal? Examine the reverse. Are the wheat stalks and lettering consistent with a normal strike? Inspect the surface for die cracks or other mint-made characteristics. Then check the weight and compare the coin with reliable reference examples. If you believe you found a serious error, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't scrape the surface. Original surfaces are extremely important to collectors, and cleaning can permanently reduce the coin's desirability. The complete high-end value associated with this 1939 example is $192,000 plus, but that number should always be viewed in context. It is not what every 1939 wheat penny is worth. Verified mint errors and truly exceptional certified examples are the coins capable of reaching extraordinary premiums. And that's what makes the 1939 Lincoln wheat penny so fascinating. The coin in your hand may look ordinary, but the investigation doesn't end with the date. Study the mint mark, or in this case, the intentional absence of one. Examine the numbers. Inspect Lincoln's portrait. Turn it over. Study the wheat ears, lettering, rim, and weight. Because sometimes the difference between a common old penny and a remarkable numismatic discovery isn't something you can see from across the room. You have to inspect the coin.